For nearly half a decade now, you've been told a lot of things. You were told there wasn't enough toilet paper. You're told to stand 6 feet apart from your own family. You were told that the supply chain is fragile and weak. But you were told just to be patient. Just trust. You'll get what you need. And then through it all, a single unsettling question has probably occurred to you. But a question they never want you to ask, which is, why are we so helpless? Why does a storm in the Pacific or a lockdown in Shanghai mean that your local Walmart runs out of baby formula or can't get baby formula? Why does a conflict on the other side of the world mean that the price of your bread doubles? How did we become a nation or a people so utterly dependent on a system that clearly doesn't care about us? And the answer is probably more disturbing than you think. It's not an accident. It's unfortunately by design. And there's a powerful, simple solution that they've deliberately hidden from you, a solution that they once celebrated. So let's talk about that solution. Let's talk about what used to be called victory gardens.
On this farm in the rolling hill country of northern Maryland, the Holters, rallying to the call for more food, join the growing army of victory gardeners.
And if you're under the age of 70, you probably don't remember or even know what a victory garden is. But during World War II, the United States government didn't just allow self-sufficiency, they demanded it. They actively promoted it, and then they celebrated it. Because the War Food Administration created a massive national campaign. Massive campaign, because they wanted everybody to know. They enlisted everybody from Eleanor Roosevelt to Mickey Mouse, and the message was simple. It's your patriotic duty to grow your own food, to grow as much food as you can. You're going to free up commercial farms so that we could feed our troops overseas. Don't be a drain on the system, but instead be the system. And it worked. It worked really, really well. By 1944, these backyard gardens and these community plots, these victory gardens, were producing nearly 40% of all the vegetables grown in the United States.
And the crops are beginning to roll out.
Think about that, 40%. New Brunswick, here where I live, is about 7 to 9% self-sufficient. And that's not from, that 40% is not from massive agribusiness, that's not from farms owned by Bill Gates, who owns the majority of the farmland in the United States. This is from ordinary people, just in their backyards, growing foods for their families and for their communities. 40%. So what happened? What's changed? There's been a lot of change since then. The war ended, and of course something else ended too. A certain spirit of American independence, and it was replaced with something weaker and something more dependent. And today, the USDA in the United States, they estimate that about 35% of American households grow any food at all, let alone are self-sufficient. And that's mostly, that food that they grow is mostly like herbs and tomatoes, it's something. The number of households with a true productive vegetable garden that they can eat from and can food and preserve food from is a fraction of that. They went from 40% of the national vegetable supply coming from backyards, from almost total resilience on a small, to almost total reliance on a small amount of massive corporations. And why is that? Well, they'll give you a lot of answers. They'll say that now we're too busy, life's so different. We don't have the space. We're more efficient if we just funnel things through the grocery stores. But is it really more efficient when a single cyber attack can shut down the largest meat processor in the country and then threaten the supply chain thereafter? Is it really efficient to have eggs going up by 70% in a single year? Is it efficient when your family, when you are one job loss away from not being able to feed your children because you have no backup plan? You got nothing else. That's not efficiency. That's fragility. And it's incredibly profitable. It makes a ton of money. So let's talk about profit, because in the end, that's what this is all about. A person who grows their own food is a terrible customer. And it's not a bad thing to make a profit, but to make it off of somebody else's demise. Think about it. A family with a productive garden doesn't buy much from the grocery store. They don't need processed, packaged, super sugar-laden junk that makes up the bulk of the food coming from the big food system. They aren't vulnerable to price hikes. They are, in a word, resilient. And resilience is the enemy of control. And control is the enemy of large, large profits every quarter. The global agribusiness industry is worth trillions of dollars. Companies like Bayer, Monsanto, Cargill, they don't make money when you save your seeds at home from your heirloom tomatoes that your grandmother or great-grandmother grew. They make money when you buy their patented genetically modified seeds and then the specific pesticides that you need for them year after year. The grocery store conglomerates, the Loblaws, or in the United States, the Krogers of the world, they don't make money when you trade zucchini with your neighbor. They make money when you push your cart down the grocery store aisles of their brightly lit, massive, massive warehouses of food with a 1,000% or more markup. And perhaps more importantly, a government that wants to control you doesn't benefit from self-sufficient citizens. A population that can feed itself is a population that's harder to boss around. If you don't need their system for your next meal, for your self-sufficiency, then you're a lot less likely to comply with when they issue more idiotic, nonsensical decrees telling you what to do. You're more apt to fight back. So they've convinced you that growing food, this little garden, is a hobby. That's something retirees and hippies do. They've sold you the lie that it's hard, that it's dirty, and that you don't have time. You don't want to do it. It's not worth your time. But let's look at some actual data, because the data is stunning. The National Gardening Association did a study, and they found that the average family with a well-planned garden can yield a $600 return on an average investment of just $70. That's a return of 750%. You won't get that from a 401k, and you certainly won't get that from a savings account, which is being devalued every year by the people who run the Federal Reserve. And it's not just about money. It's about your health. A study from the University of California found that garden-grown vegetables can have nutrient levels up to 5 times higher than their store-bought counterparts. 5 times. See, the store-bought ones are bred to ship. They're bred for durability, not for nutrition or even flavor. They're feeding you empty calories and charging you more for the privilege of it. And then when you get sick, of course, from a diet of your processed food, that same system will feed you the pharmaceuticals to manage those symptoms. It's a perfect closed-loop system. It's a perfect system to make a profit. And unfortunately, you and I are the product. Your dependency on that system is the commodity being sold and handed around between multi-billion-dollar corporations. So what would a new victory garden movement look like? Well, it wouldn't be promoted currently by the Department of Agriculture, that's for sure. They're too busy subsidizing corn for high fructose corn syrup or bailing out massive corporate farms to keep them in business, because that's important. No, this new movement would have to come from you and I. It would be quiet, decentralized. It would be a powerful rejection of their current system. Imagine if 20 million Americans or hundreds of thousands of Canadians just decided that next spring they're going to plant a 10 by 10 foot garden. That math, if you work out that math, that's 200 million square feet of productive lands that those 20 million Americans grow. That single act would inject billions of dollars worth of fresh, healthy food directly into communities. It would completely bypass these corporate supply chains and systems. It would reduce your food bill, your grocery bill that's grown exponentially over the past few years. It would improve your family's health. And it would teach your children a fundamental skill that in public school, they're unlikely to learn. Public school is currently more focused on ideology than basic biology and botany. And it would connect you with your neighbors, regardless of what side of the aisle or political beliefs that you have. You'd have extra tomatoes, you'd have extra cucumbers you could trade to them. You'd build real community and have real conversations, not digital ones, not the BS spread online. You'd have community-based mutual aid, not dependency. And they'll mock you for it. They do now. The talking heads on cable channels and the people who fly on private jets to climate conferences to lecture you about your carbon footprint. They'll call you a prepper. They'll call you a conspiracy theorist. They'll call you a weirdo. I'm okay with that. They'll say stuff like, you're dropping out. And they're right. You're dropping out of their system. You're choosing freedom over convenience. You're choosing resilience over fragility. And this isn't about becoming a survivalist. You're not preparing for the apocalypse and the end of the world. You're not hiding in a bunker. This is about the most basic, normal human function there is, providing for yourself and your family. It's the ultimate act of patriotism. It's taking responsibility for your own life. And they're taking that away from you more and more. They convinced you that you're too stupid, you're too busy, and you're too incompetent to do something that your great-grandparents did as a matter of course. It was easy. That's just what they did. They've made you a consumer. And it's time to become a producer again. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to plant a cucumber or a tomato. So here's my plea to you. Don't wait for a government program where you can get a grant to... There's not going to be one. The government's not in the business of creating independent citizens. It's in the business of creating dependent subjects, especially given how many billions or trillions of dollars in debt they are and continuing to grow it further. So try this. Try something different. Try this spring, buy a packet of heirloom, non-GMO, just seeds. Buy some seeds. It's about $3. Actually, right now, this time of year is a great time to buy them because their seeds are on sale for the end of season. They make great Christmas presents, even stocking stuffers full of seeds. But buy some seeds, throw them in your backyard, put them in a pot in your balcony, in a box in your window of your apartment. If you don't have space, find a neighbor, somebody in your community that does, and just offer to help. Start a community garden at your church. Grow something, anything, a tomato, a head of lettuce, a single cucumber. I guarantee you it's not as hard as you think it is. The act itself of growing something for yourself is a quiet, peaceful, profoundly powerful no to the people who think that they own you. And it's a yes to your family, to your health, to your community, and to your own sovereignty. They had their freedom victory gardens to fight foreign tyranny. And we need our victory gardens to fight domestic tyranny. The tyranny of dependence, to prove once again that we're not helpless. We can still provide for ourselves, even though they don't want you to. They don't want you to be self-sufficient, because self-sufficient people are free. And that's the one thing that they cannot control. If you are free, if you know how to grow food, if you can grow your own food, if you control the food, you control the people. And I want to control my own food, my own family, because there's very little else that I can actually control.